You wanna come up? Up. Yes! Oh, beautiful. Giving everyone your backside. Oh, yeah, you can join me right here. That's good. Last year, Gwen from Gwen Shenanigans knit a 1920s bathing suit and enjoyed the process so much she decided to open up a collaboration to anyone who wanted to join to make a vintage bathing suit so we can all take part in a vintage pool party. She opened it up to sewing, knitting, crocheting, however you wanted to make your bathing suit, expanding from the original just knitting. And I really wanted to be part of the vintage pool party this year, so I decided to depart from my usual Victorian-ish time frame and go to more of my 40s. I do very much like the 40s. This is a 40s sweater pattern. This is a 40s apron pattern. I have other 40s sweaters I've knit. It's another area and time frame that I really like making and especially knitting items from. And I saw so many adorable 1940s bathing suit patterns that I just really wanted to try one. The pattern that eventually caught my eye was this 1940s bathing suit, which had an adorable little sailboat on both the bottoms and the top. It is originally meant to be knit in white with red and blue used for the color work. I decided instead to use blue as my base color because I'm not sure if these are meant for swimming, but I imagine that if the white bathing suit got wet, it would be maybe a little less appropriate to wear. So I decided to use a dark blue as my base color. Also, yes, in case you were wondering, oh, you wanna go? Okay, bye. It does call for the bathing suit to be made out of wool, and I did make it out of wool. I used Andean Treasure. I tend to have pretty sensitive skin, and I like Andean Treasure from Knit Picks the most because while it's not itch-free, I personally found for my skin it is the most comfortable thing to wear, and I am glad I used it. I found it pretty comfortable at the end. There have been a few people who've already finished their outfits for the vintage pool party, and I'll leave a link down to their videos or a playlist or Instagram post, whatever it might be, so you can also check those out if you want to. Let me take you through the process of knitting the bathing suit and then actually wearing it. I started by knitting the bottoms of this bathing suit like the pattern suggests, and as you can see, I didn't pay too much attention to my gauge swatch, and these are far baggier than I hoped that they would fit. These shorts are knit flat with the front and back knit separately and then seamed together. I tried at first to use pins to pin them together to try them on, and I cannot recommend that at all, so instead I basted them together to see how they fit. They are far too wide. I looked at the gauge and my gauge is about 1.5 times larger than it should have been, so I really should have gauge swatched this first and gone down a needle size. They also look really, really awkward in the crotch area. This is the first garment that I've ever made that has a crotch, and it is both out of knitted fabric that then has to be sewn together, so I feel like that's probably one of the more difficult ways to start off my bottom making journey. Thankfully though, I was able to send some pictures of this to some of my other costume friends, and they recommended a way that I could fix this by not only taking in the sides, but adding a little extra length to the crotch region, so basically a little extra rectangular piece to elongate the crotch to hopefully make it fit a little bit better. To better understand what shape and how long the crotch area should be for these bathing suit bottoms, I just took a swimsuit that fits me well and modeled it off of that with a piece of fabric and then knit from one side to the other, kind of following the size that I found for the piece of fabric that I cut out. And now that I have finished adding that extra length, I decided to try on the bottoms one more time just to make sure that it fits well, and I think that they look much better than before. And while it's not perfect, and I wish that I could have made some other modifications while I was knitting these bottoms, it's much, much better looking than before. This is also really the first time I've ever talked about bottoms that have a crotch, and I didn't think I would say crotch this often, ever, in a video. I had to make more modifications to these bottoms than I usually do when I knit. I usually pay a little bit better attention to sizing, and I would recommend that you really pay attention to your gauge and the shape of bottoms if you're also wanting to knit a bathing suit like this. But I am happy with how it turned out. You can see the extra bulk at the side seams here because I haven't yet cut away the knit fabric. But before I cut away the fabric, I just wanted to make sure that the fit was what I was hoping it would be. There's also going to be a drawstring added to the waist area to cinch it in a little bit more and keep it securely in place. The bottoms were only 2 pieces that ended up being sewn together, but the top was a little bit more complicated. You have to knit the left and the right section separately, plus all of the ribbing separately, and seam them on according to the instructions. I went a little bit off the book because I don't like to seam things together as much, especially when there's ribbing involved, which is very changeable or flexible, so I decided to pick up stitches and knit the ribbing from the finished pieces instead, which I found easier, but you can also do it separately and seam it in the end. I had learned my lesson from my far too large gauge on the bottoms and not only went a little bit down on my needle size, but I altered the stitch counts so that it would fit my measurements much better. I wanted to be sure that I could still put the motif of the sailboat on my tops, so I made it slightly larger than what my size called for, just so that I can just barely fit the sailboat colorwork on the top as well, because I thought it was super cute and I'm really happy with how the sailboat looks. It's quite wobbly because flat work, color work, the tension is really hard to keep even, but with some ironing and gentle steaming, I found that it laid really nice and flat as a finishing method. After finishing all the different portions for the top and sewing them together and finishing the color work and adding a drawstring to the top, my 1940s bathing suit was finished and I think it looks so cute. Of course, the entire week that I was working on this bathing suit, it was about 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and then the morning that I finished it and was ready to wear it, it ended up being about 42 degrees Fahrenheit, so nice and chilly. But at least because the bathing suit's made out of wool and has a little bit more coverage, I wasn't too cold. Please do check out the other vintage pool party outfits that were made. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like videos like this, please feel free to subscribe, and I will see you again really soon with some more antique and vintage historical knitting.